Okay, so now let's look at division with rational expressions. And this is, again, is still 7.1b. And remember, when you do your homework, it's going to mix them all up. So you're going to have to really pay attention closely to whether it's asking you to multiply or divide. So let's go ahead and look at the division. Remember, division and multiplication, they're in the same section because they're really, really similar. They're only one step away or different from each other. And that one step is the very first one. What we need to do with division is we need to change it to multiplication. So we keep the first fraction the same. We change the operation to multiplication, and then we flip our second fraction. Okay, so in this particular example, we would keep 12 over 45 times 35 over 16. Okay, and then we're in multiplication, so we do exactly what we were doing in our previous example. The next thing we want to do is we want to reduce the fraction just like before. So in this case, 12 and 16 are both divisible by 4. So that makes that 12 a 3. That makes that 16 a 4. 45 and 35 are both divisible by 5. So this makes this a 9. And that's a 7. And now if we rewrite this, we've got 3 over 9 times 7 over 4. But you'll notice that we didn't get everything the first time through. 3 over 9 would reduce as well. So this would become a 1. And the 9 would become a 3. So we've got 1 times 7, which is 7, and 3 times 4, which is 12. So our answer would be 7 over 12. Okay, so for our first example of division, we've got 12 over x cubed divided by 4 over 8x cubed. Again, we're going to take the first one and keep it the same. We're going to change that division to a multiplication, and we're going to flip that second fraction. Okay, and now we can look at reducing. 12 and 4 are both divisible by 4, so that 12 becomes a 3. The 4 becomes a 1. Notice you have an x cubed on both top and bottom, so they can cancel each other out completely. So right now we're looking at 3 over 1 times 8 over 1. So again, we're going to multiply across, and that will give us 24. And it would be over 1, but remember what we've talked about before. We don't like to put things over 1, so our answer is just 24. So for our second example of division, we've got 2t squared over 15s squared divided by 4t over 15s cubed. So again, we're going to have to flip this. So we're going to have 2t squared over 15s squared times 15s cubed over 4t. Okay, so 2 and 4 both divisible by 2, so that 2 becomes a 1, 4 becomes a 2. Notice you have a t squared on the top and 1t on the bottom, so that t squared becomes a t, and this t on the bottom goes away. 15 and 15 are both going to become a 1. And we've got 3 s's on the top and 2 on the bottom, so the 2 on the bottom will go away, and we'll just have 1 left on the top. So let's go ahead and rewrite it because it's looking kind of messy. We've got 1t over 1 times 1s over 2. So multiply straight across. So we've got st over 2. And I know that 1 times 1 would typically put a 1 in front of there, but Hawks really doesn't like it when we put 1s in front of our variables like that. So when you put your answer in, you do not want to put the 1 there. You just want to say st over 2. And it really doesn't matter if you put s over 2. The order that the variables come in is not that big of a deal. So our steps for dividing rational expressions where there's only multiplication in it is going to be, number 1, we're going to keep the first fraction. We're going to change the division into multiplication, and we're going to flip the second fraction. So keep, change, flip. Step number 2, you're going to reduce if possible. And step number 3, you're going to rewrite, and last but not least, we're going to multiply across. Okay, so as you can see, again, the steps between multiplication and division are basically the same. You just have to add that one step of keep, change, flip. After that, it's identical to what we were doing in our previous video. Okay, so let's do some examples of division that has addition and subtraction in it. Now again, the first step for division, no matter what it starts out looking like, is to change this to a multiplication problem. So we're going to keep the first fraction, 7x minus x squared over 2y. Change to multiplication, we're going to have 3y squared over 4 times x squared minus 49. Okay, now we did a problem very similar to this when we were looking at our multiplication examples, and what we did was we noticed that that negative x squared, we didn't want him negative, so we're going to multiply by -1 top and bottom. That's going to give us a negative 7x plus x squared over negative 2y. And then we said, oh, we want to switch those around. We don't want the x squared in the back, so we're going to rewrite this, and we're going to say x squared minus 7x over negative 2y. And we're going to bring that second fraction just straight down to line up. So we've got 3y squared over 4 times x squared minus 49. And now we're going to start factoring. So notice on the top of that first fraction, there is an x in common. So we're going to pull that x out. We're going to have x minus 7 over negative 2y. On the second fraction here, we've got 3y squared. And we're going to bring the 4 down, and x squared minus 49 is a difference of squares, so it's going to factor to x plus 7 and then x minus 7. Now we can start canceling, so notice the x minus 7's go away. There's 2 y's on the top and 1 on the bottom, so that 1 on the bottom is going to go away, and we'll get left with 1 on the top. Now we can say we've got, don't forget about our x over here, so on the top we've got 3xy over, so we're going to say negative 2 times 4 will give us negative 8 times x plus 7. And remember we talked about this. We don't ever want to have a negative on the bottom of a fraction, so we're going to move this negative up to the top. And this is going to be negative 3xy over 8 times x plus 7. And there's our final answer. So for our fourth example here, we've got y squared minus 25 over 25 divided by y plus 5 squared over 5. So again, it's a division problem, so the first thing we need to do is keep, change, flip. So we're going to keep our first fraction just the way it is. We're going to change to multiplication, and then we're going to flip our second fraction. And now we got a factor. So again, y squared minus 25 is a difference of squares. You'll get real used to those. We really like difference of squares. So that's going to factor into y plus 5 and y minus 5 over 25 times, we've got 5. Now, y plus 5 squared has already been factored to you, but I do want you to do is write this out. Remember, when you square something, that means you're multiplying it by itself. So y plus 5 squared means y plus 5 times y plus 5. And that just makes it easier for you to cancel, because we've got 1y plus 5 here and 1 down here. Remember, you can only cancel 1 to 1. We can also cancel our 5s. 25 would become 5. This on the top would become 1. So what we've got left on the top is y minus 5. On the bottom, we've got 5 times y plus 5. And there is our final answer. And remember, the reason we can't cancel y minus 5 and y plus 5 is because in order to cancel stuff, they have to look exactly like numbers, letters, signs, everything. Okay, so for our final example of division, we've got x plus 3 over x squared minus 4x plus 4, and divided by x plus 3 over x squared minus 5x plus 6. Again, division, so we need to flip. So we've got x plus 3 over x squared minus 4x plus 4. Change to multiplication. And then here we've got x squared minus 5x plus 6 over x plus 3, excuse me. Then we're going to factor, so we've got x plus 3 over, we're going to do our two parentheses, we're going to have x minus 2 and x minus 2. Over here we got to factor the top. This is going to factor to x minus 2 and x minus 3 over x plus 3. Okay, now we just start canceling. So we can cancel out our x plus 3's. We can cancel out an x minus 2. So what we've got left is x minus 3 over x minus 2, and there's our final answer. Okay, so these are the steps for dividing rational expressions with addition and subtraction. Okay, and they're going to be very similar to our multiplication. Again, the only thing that's really changing is that first step, which becomes we need to keep our first fraction, change the division to a multiplication, and flip our second fraction. Okay. After that, we want to make sure we can't factor anything, and we want to factor anything we can. Step number 3 is to reduce or cancel. And step number 4 is to multiply whatever we have left.